Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me today for the BIM and VR for the home building industry webinar. Today, we're going to be looking at BIM, getting a good definition. What is BIM? How can I use it in my business? And we'll also be looking at VR. There's so many different types of VR. How can you provide that to your clients? Why would you? And what are the benefits of all of it? Following the presentation, I'm going to open up the chat panel, and that'll give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about BIM and VR for your home building business. So let's get started. First off, I'd like to give you a little background about CADsoft and who we are and who I am. My name is Chantal, and I've been with CADsoft for 21 years now. We began developing our Envisioneer technology back in 2001, and we are one of the world's largest licensors of home design and construction software for both the professional and the consumer. We have many different consumer lines on the market, including the HGTV brand and the virtual architect software. We have 1 million copies of our Envisioneer technology sold worldwide, and it's available in 4 different languages. We've won numerous awards for our technology and our innovation in the home building industry. Our market presence is worldwide. We have office presence in Canada, the US, Europe, China, Australia, and both functions of that also feed in other areas of South Africa and New Zealand. So I want to start off really with a good definition of what is BIM for those of you that may have heard the word and wondered what it is in the industry, or maybe heard the word and heard so many different definitions of it. I thought I'd kind of bring that all together today and kind of give you a definition and the history of BIM in the home design market. So if we look back historically, when we were creating home designs, we started off by 2D hand drafting. We would draw out the floor plan, the elevations, the sections, the details, all done by hand. Beautiful drawings that took a lot of time, but they had that element that they conveyed our ideas and our construction methods. So it was a way of documentation. And then over time, we went into that next stage, which was a great leap in optimization when we had 2D CAD drafting. So we were still following the same process, drawing lines to represent our elevations and floor plans and our materials that we were using, but changes were easier. We could throw away that electric eraser and forget about rubbing holes in the vellum like we used to. Now we could do that all in the 2D CAD environment, click, erase. It was much more efficient. And then we were introduced to 3D models. And this became an efficient way of communication. We could now navigate through a 3D model and solve problems by using prototypes. Now I could see where that ductwork is going to run and how that's going to be a problem when I'm laying out the structure of the home. And then from there, we've evolved to the stage we're in at now with BIM. And BIM is building information modeling. It's about connecting the processes when we're building a home. So we're extending all of those workflows and we're collaborating with everyone that's involved in the job, right from the homeowner at the very beginning all the way until all of the lumber arrives on site. The BIM model can be used. So it's taking information from that 3D model, but making it an intelligent 3D model so everything in the model is connected and knows what they are, and we can draw information from it and use it to automate the building industry. So knowing that if we have this intelligent 3D model now, what are the benefits of BIM and how can we use them in our business? Well, presentations. You can produce really good 3D images and even VR, virtual reality experiences from an intelligent BIM 3D model. So you can engage your clients in those stunning visuals so they understand exactly what they're going to get in their finished product. It reduces the concept stage, so you don't have to keep going back with 2D drawings and saying, do you like this proposal, when they can see it and they have that 3D model that they're even immersed in. If it's VR, they understand it. Communication. You can reduce the amount of errors and surprises on site when sharing a 3D model with everyone that's involved in all of the trades. So now everyone's going to know ahead of time that there's a beam running through the model right there, right where they're going to run their HVAC. Or, whoops, we were going to put some plumbing fixtures right over top of that. How are we going to run the stack? With this graphical way of viewing a model, everyone can see these things right off the start. Accuracy. The model holds information regarding cost and SKU numbers. It can have sizes associated to it, phases of construction and usage in the reports, and those can be sent directly to the accounting software. So instead of having to retype everything and maybe missing something or typing in something inaccurately and getting the wrong SKU number in your accounting software, now everything is just digitally passed along, and you don't have to worry about that human error factor when we're retyping and redrawing through all of the different processes. Automation. From that one BIM model, we can produce a lot of different information. Think of the working drawings. Because it's an intelligent 3D model, you can automatically pull off elevations, sections, floor plans, details, anything that you need for your permit purpose. And you can also pull off, as I was saying before with the accuracy, your bill of materials as well. So if you were using separate software packages all the way through, now this BIM model that you're going to use can pull all of that information off of one. Think of it as the hub of your business. You design that model once, and then you can pull all of the information that you need from it, whether it's your presentation drawings, your bill of materials for your quotes, the working drawings that you're going to need, and information for your website, your marketing materials as well. Integration, I think, is the key benefit of BIM, being able to talk and communicate with other pieces of software that you might need to use. That data from the BIM model can flow directly to different products. Our CADsoft Envisioneer product talks to many different point of sale systems, and it also talks to different accounting software. We talk to MyTech for their trusses and Weyerhaeuser for their iJoist, CSD, Simpson, 2020 Spaces for their kitchen design, and again, the point of sale systems. So there's lots of ways we can use this model and then push out the information if we need further value-added services added to that. And we're working with other people in the industry that might be using these specialized software systems. Analysis. We link directly up with the energy analysis software, ResCheck, produced by the U.S. government, so that you can get approval on your energy efficiency of the home. When I go through later on in our presentation and give you a demonstration of our BIM product, I'll show you how you can attach that energy information to the different elements and how it can be passed out directly to ResCheck. So again, you're eliminating a process, a step that you can make potentially an error in. So we want to eliminate those as much as possible, and BIM, using that building information model and being able to pull that information off directly, is going to save a lot of those different steps and those areas where we could potentially make a mistake. So let me flip over to my Envisioneer screen, and I'll give you a demonstration on how it works, and you can see a live BIM model in action, and I'll show you how it can tie into that virtual reality environment. And when I'm done giving you the BIM presentation, we're going to go back out and talk about all of the different VR types that are available and which ones you should use for which situation, whether it be a Google Cardboard or an Oculus Rift. All of those different options, will cover them and what's their pros and cons of using each one. So this is our Envisioneer Construction Suite software. And in here, I have my drawing screen where I can start to draw different elements. To make it easy to navigate and use the various tools, we've docked them up in the very top of the screen in different tabs. So if I'm building something, I'm going to find that under my building tab, whether it be walls, doors, windows, structural floor systems, a roof and the roof framing, stairs, railings, columns, beams, footings. And then when I go to finish the home with different interior objects, I can find them here, like cabinetry and electronics, my electrical plan, my HVAC, plumbing, and different equipment. You can also do landscape, so you can tie that into your model as well. There's over 7,500 different plants in the model, and they have information about their watering schedules and diseases that might affect them. So you can build that intelligence into the BIM model as well. You can also do decks, irrigation plans, exterior lighting, and add in any kind of custom accessories that you might want to on your landscape plan. We also do terrain, and terrain's a big part of your model as well. So you can feed in the exact spot level points from your site equipment, or you can put in individual spot points if you don't have the survey data available. Or we also have different tools to allow you to manipulate the terrain if you just want to simply show slight slopes and you don't have the accurate data maybe from your surveyor. So I'm going to start off under that building tab, and I'm going to click on walls. On the right-hand side of my screen, which may be covered up by your GoToMeeting console, there's a catalog panel there. And in that catalog panel, as I choose the different tools that I'm going to be using, it's going to update to show me my choices. So when I'm drawing a wall, I simply go to the catalog and grab the wall. When I want a door, the catalog changes to doors. There's not a lot of dialog boxes opening up and closing and different screens coming in. We try to keep it as seamless as possible. So I'm going to go to my catalog, grab a wall. This one's 2x6 construction with a stone veneer. And then I simply bring my cursor out onto the drawing screen, and I left click to get started. As I move my cursor, you'll notice that dimensions attach themselves to the wall that I'm drawing, and as I move the wall, those dimensions are going to change accordingly. Down at the bottom of my screen, you'll also see distance and direction. So if I know the exact length of a wall that I want to type in, I can type in 20 feet as an example, hit enter, and I've just drawn a 20-foot wall. Or I can just watch those on-screen dimensions, or I can line up walls with other walls that are already part of my floor plan, so I know that they're going to be exactly in line. And then just point and click as I make my way through the floor plan to come up with the design. So you've got a lot of flexibility when you're typing in the walls. Point and click, type in the exact dimensions if you know them, or just watch those on-screen dimensions. Once you have that model, the walls drawn, you can move on from there and start inserting any of the other different elements. And that doesn't mean you have to make your way across. I could flip right now over to roofs. Go into my catalog, tell it I want a 612 hip, left click once inside the home, and it will create the roof geometry for me. And those are all interconnected. As I'm inserting different elements, this roof knows how to work in conjunction with those walls. So if I come through and click on this wall as an example and change this dimension to 14 feet, the walls are going to move and the roof is going to update as well. So as you make changes to these dimensions, they're also going to update with the model as well. I could even pick up a wall by just using these blue grips that you see in the middle, hold down my left mouse button and move it, and you can see the roof knows how to realign itself. So that's the benefit of working with a BIM model. It's intelligent. It knows how to correlate the different elements together. Previously, in years past, when you were 2D hand drafting or using a simple 2D CAD package to draw out your house plans, it didn't have that connectivity. But now it does in a BIM model, and everything's going to work together. If I want to make changes to the roof, I can even click on the overhang of the roof. You'll notice when I click on the overhang of the roof that arrows appear along the roof. Each separate surface of the roof has its own arrow that's going to hold its information about pitch, plate height, style. So if I click on the arrows, they turn green. And that means that they're selected, they're ready to be changed if I want them to be anything other than a 612 hip. So with these two sides selected, these two green arrows, I'm going to change them, and I'm going to leave all the other sides to 612 hip. By looking at their properties, I can make any kind of change. Here's where I can say that these two sides are going to be maybe an 8 and 12 hip. And maybe I want them to have a 2-foot overhang. Or maybe instead of being a hip, I can click on this little button and change them to a gable, or a mansard, or a Dutch hip, or custom with multiple slopes. A good BIM model is going to give you lots of options to manipulate it to match the exact construction that you're going to have on site. Simply click OK, and that's been updated to a gable. Everything that I'm doing here in 2D is an actual 3D model. So I can change my view type at any time and go out and see that model and take a tour around it to see exactly what it's going to look like. As I'm moving this on my screen, it's going to depend on your bandwidth and your internet connection, how fast that rotates. So I'm not going to try to move too much just in case people in our audience have a slower connection speed. But you can see the stone walls that we've created and our 6 and 12 hip roof with our 2 gable ends now. Because again, it's a true 3D BIM model, I can work in any type of mode I like. So while I'm here in 3D, I can even grab the door and insert the door, or grab our windows and left click to place the windows. Now, I can do that accurately as well, even when in 3D. I can say center these windows on this wall, and it's going to find the center points for me. Or if I right click there, you can see that I can insert them a set distance away from a corner as well. So there's lots of different options. And as you fly around the model, you can make lots of those different changes that you need to. And everything that I'm doing while I'm out in 3D directly correlates back to that 2D view because they're the same model, we're just getting a different view of it. So if I feel more comfortable, if I've worked in the past strictly in a 2D environment, I can do that in a BIM model as well. I can grab the windows that I want to insert and place them wherever I want them to go within my model. Grab the doors, place them in my model as well, wherever I need them to go. I'm going to place a ceiling inside our home, and we can also put cameras wherever we need to. So if we want our client to pretend that they're standing at their front door and looking inside their new home, we can place a camera there and go directly inside. So from here, they can look around and get an idea what it's going to look like when they first walk in. And if there's elements that they want to add, maybe under our interiors tab, they could do so. So if they want a fireplace unit, maybe between these 2 windows, I can just place that in wherever I want that to go. Or if they want some furniture, some seating around that, or perhaps some dining room, a different dining room set, maybe in that corner, they can place that in. Let's use this little carved out section right here and place in a kitchen. We can do that with individual cabinets and appliances, but we also have automated routines that go through the kitchen design with you as well. We can insert, using this automated wizard, 3 different types of kitchens, and once they're in, we can deviate from the initial L-shaped galley or U-shaped style, adding more cabinets in if we wanted to have one leg longer, or perhaps we wanted a island in there. We can add those in later as well. So I'm going to do a U-shape, show it the orientation of the appliances and the plumbing fixtures that I'm going to be using. And then I come into my theme center, which allows me to choose various materials. The nice thing about a BIM software package as well is it's going to be flexible on the materials that you can use. All of the materials that you see here are simply JPEG images. So if you had maybe a brand new quartz countertop that you wanted to profile in your design, you could even take a digital picture of it with your smartphone and upload it into the software, or get the JPEG or bitmap image right from the manufacturer and feed it into the software. Or if you're a remodeler and your client is insisting they want to keep their cabinets looking the exact same, that's not something they have in their budget, but they want to see what the existing kitchen looks like with the new changes you're going to make, maybe in an addition, you can take pictures of their cabinet finishes, feed them into the software so they can see it as well. From there, I'm going to show how I'm going to lay it out. So I'm just going to place it here in my drawing. I'm just going to show you here by bringing it up. There's a little layout, a little plan attached to my cursor right now where I can start and stop to show it where I want it to go in. So I just pick where I want it to start and stop and place it inside. And when I do so, it'll insert that whole kitchen. So what started out was just a chalk line on the ground, and now I've got cabinets. I'm just hitting delete on my keyboard right now to get rid of cabinets that I don't want to include in the design. Or I could select a couple of those cabinets and say, let's look at their properties, let's customize them. And what would they look like if they had glass front panels, and update and change that. So you've got a lot of flexibility with these 3D objects. The nice thing about them as well, it's going to piece count everything, and I'm going to show you a material list as well. And each one of these elements, because they're intelligent, knows the quantification of them in that 3D model as well. Out here, I can even go on my building tab, insert a window. So I'm going to place one here in the middle of that wall, and then I'm just going to make a custom size of a window so I can maximize the window size that I want and place it into the model just like that. So you can see exactly what it's going to look like if they had a larger window in that space. I'm going to put that back down into 2D now. And when I do that, I can see my kitchen layout, everything about my model that I have. So I've got all of that information coming through. With this as well, when I'm looking at all these objects, like the wall, I'm going to double click on that wall and bring up its information. What makes it a BIM model, what makes these walls intelligent, is the information that are fed behind them. So this wall knows that it's a framed wall. It's framed using 2x6s. And even those 2x6s have intelligence on them as well, that they know that they will have available in different lengths. So I have my pre-cut stud lengths, I have my 8-footers, I have 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s, and each one of those pieces can have rules set to them so that I know that this particular 2x10, the 2x6 10-footer, never use it for plate material. And I know my stud element, when I'm looking at my pre-cut stud length, can only be used for a stud. So it even knows what pieces of lumber to use depending on the usage that you want to give to it. So you're not using up and ordering a bunch of 20-footers that are more expensive. It's going to optimize that lumber for you too. When I'm looking at the model, it can include trim as well. So when we are the inside, you may have noticed there was already baseboard. So part of the intelligence of that wall is automatically giving me the baseboard and casing around the openings that I want. And that will relate to a linear footage of trim that I'm going to get at the end in my report. Here under the Appearance tab, that's when you can set all of the different materials and grab those exact JPEGs that you want it to look like on the inside of the wall and the outside. And this last Quantity tab, this is where it's going to tabulate all of the materials that it's going to quantify to give you that material report. So with this 2x6 stone wall, I'm going to get stone, mortar, house wrap, sheathing tape, OSB sheathing, stick nail, staples, drywall, joint tape, compound, insulation, nails, even paint and primer, all included as soon as this wall is drawn. To see that report, you simply analyze the model and generate a project estimate. And it pulls up all the information about what you've drawn so far. So I can see my ground floor wall framing. There's all my studs, my headers over the openings, and my ceiling construction, the ceiling joists that I used for that. My roof framing, when I put on that 612 roof and told it I wanted it, it also gave me all the rafter material for it as well. It does roof finishes, so I can see how many bundles of shingles I'm going to require. The rolls of felt and ice and water shield. There's my windows that I placed into the model. And my exterior finish. There's all about the stone, the house wrap, the aluminum soffit, all of the different elements that go into the design are fully reported because the elements that you're drawing with aren't just lines, they're intelligent 3D objects. Once I have that information, I can easily flip to our landscape tab and put on a deck. Tell it the type of deck that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to zoom in here off to this one side and pick points to define where this deck is going to start and stop off the back of the house here. When I hit finish, it'll put in the deck. When I was first picking those points for the deck, I was picking inside my stud wall. That tells the deck as I'm building it to lag this deck into the wall and give me a ledger board. If I had started picking points to the outside of that stone, then it would automatically give me my first line of beams and columns right up against the house. It knows I don't want to lag it to the house. I want it to be an independent structure. If we take a look at this in 3D, we can see our deck. I'm going to zoom in a little closer on that for us. If I double click on the deck, I can bring up its intelligent information. How far above or below my finished floor in my house is this deck? Right now, it's right flush, but I could move that up or down. How far below grade do I need those posts to go, depending on your frost level? The posts and footings that you're going to be using. The framing construction style. Like I said, we ship around the world in 4 different languages, so what might be common in your local area might be totally different somewhere else in the world. So we have beam on post, beam flush, and beam to post side as our styles. You can choose decking material, joist, and beams. And when you do so, remember it's going back into that catalog and grabbing that actual 2x8, looking at the purchase member lengths and giving you the correct lengths to order as well. You can also add accessories onto that deck. So I can say I want aluminum railing, and I'll be able to visualize and show my clients what exactly it's going to look like with that cedar deck and an aluminum railing when I click OK. If I choose to put stairs on that deck, I can tell them I want 5-foot cedar deck stairs. Left click along the deck edge, and it'll automatically cut that handrail and send it down the side. From there, I can go to terrain and tell it now that I want to maybe add in a slope. The back of our lot is going to slope down 5 feet. I better show that and see what it's going to look like. And when I do so, you can see that because it recognizes that additional 5 feet, it extends down the stairs and the posts accordingly for me. So my material report is accurately reflected. But now it looks like our house is floating, so let's think about a foundation underneath it. So I'm going to come back to these design wizards like we did with the kitchen, and I'm going to develop a foundation underneath. I'm going to tell it that I'm designing a foundation, and then choose the type of foundation system that I use. So if you, in your local area, use a monolithic slab or slab on grade, or perhaps you have a full basement, or you have a stem wall and footing situation, you can choose the style that best suits your construction. So again, it counts the materials correctly. From there, I specify the materials that I want to use. So I'm going to tell it that we're going to be pouring concrete, 10-inch concrete walls, and I'm going to use a 1x2 footer. That concrete wall and those footings have more intelligence to them as well. They can have under that quantity tab, like we looked at when we were looking at the stone wall, the walls and the footings can also think about rebar. So in that footing, I could be counting rebar, the chairs that it's going to be sitting on as well. From there, I click Next, and here is where I can align the ground floor walls. If that stone was going to come directly down and sit on my foundation wall, how they would line up. Do I want to cantilever it out for weeping purposes? Do I want it to sit back? Maybe it's an older construction method that you're using in an older home and you have to match it. You can change how this wall is going to sit in direction with each other. From there, I just hit Finish, and it automatically puts the foundation system underneath it. So I have a foundation plan and my ground floor plan when I bring this back into a 2D view. I'm viewing my ground floor plan, but down here in the lower left, I can view my foundation. And all of that information keeps adding itself into that project estimate. Because I'm adding more 3D intelligent objects in my BIM model, they're all going to count for me. So I'm going to have my decking materials, anchor bolts, poured concrete for my foundation. I've got my stairs coming out, my ground floor wall framing. Everything keeps getting added into this model as I add more intelligent elements to it. We also talked about exporting this model out and sharing it in different formats like ResCheck. Well, if I double click back on that wall as an example and scroll down in its parameters, you can see that it's got energy efficiency information attached to it as well. So I can tell it the R value associated to this wall, so it can export it out to ResCheck. And exporting it out to ResCheck is as simple as saying export, analyze the model, and send it out to the ResCheck export. It produces a file for ResCheck to open directly in that software package. There's nothing further that you have to do on our end. Just open it up in ResCheck and finish your work there. We also produce automatic schedules. So if you need a door schedule or a window schedule or a member schedule, we can produce those for you. We can also produce wall panel diagrams. So if you are a manufactured housing company and want to send these walls as panels out to your plant, we can produce a panel drawing for you. Or perhaps you have some new staff training some new people on site how to frame walls. These panel diagrams can be quite helpful as well. So I can click on any one of them and say, insert that panel so I can print it out. And I'll just close this out and take a look at the panel. And what it does is it labels every piece of lumber in that wall. So you can see they all have different letters associated to them. And if I scroll down here, then I can see the list below. So anything that's tagged as an A is a stud that's 2x6, and it has to be cut to this length. If it's B, it's also stud, but it has a different length. So it puts it into a little puzzle for them so that they can put it all together. Helpful if you have new staff that you're training on how to frame, or if you're a manufactured housing company and you're producing wall panels. Lots of information can be obtained from this model. The other things that you want to start to produce when you're maybe in that 3D view inside looking at the kitchen area or looking at different views of your model, you want to render those and send them out as photorealistic images. If you take a look at the gallery on the www.cadsoft.com website, you can see the type of quality that you can achieve for photorealistic renderings. We can cast down shades and shadows and tell you exactly where you are in the world so you can see exactly what it's going to look like in the home photorealistically. We can also go into presentation mode. So when I'm in presentation mode, that's when I can hook up my Oculus Rift or my HTC Vive VR equipment. And in that presentation mode, putting on the helmet, now I'm navigating around the model with a gaming controller, and I feel like I'm really in that model. I feel like I'm immersed. I can look up and around in that model. Obviously, in a webinar, it's kind of hard to show you that, but if you download our trial and you happen to have a Oculus Rift or HTC Vive unit, then you can give that a test drive. If you want to share the information with a client, we also give you the ability to export the model out in different formats. So even as a 2D image, we can send that out as a JPEG or a bitmap. A 2D drawing, so if you're working with someone that's using AutoCAD as an example, we can send it out in AutoCAD format. As a full 3D model, we can export it in a panoramic view. This is a cool feature. Exporting it as a panoramic view will send it to a VR app that your clients can download and see on their cell phone. So it takes the camera position and allows it to have this panoramic view that they can see. Right now what it's doing is it's calculating the sun and the shadows that are in that space, and once it's done, it'll send it off to the VR app. So then you can share that with your clients. So they walk away not only after a visit with you and seeing their 3D model, but now they've got it on their cell phone, and they can share it with their friends and remember that exact plan that you were showing them. So it's a great way to give them a little bit of sizzle. Again, because it's an intelligent 3D model, we can share it with other value-added software products like Warehouser, CSD, MyTech, Boise, Keymark, and Simpson 2020, and Sketchfab. Sketchfab's another viewer that allows you to navigate around a 3D model. So you don't have to have the software. So you could have Envisioneer create your 3D model and then send it off to Sketchfab so your clients can just go up there. It's an online 3D viewer and view your model. Working with intelligent models gives you all of that capability so you very quickly can produce all of that information as well as all of your working drawings as well. I'm going to slip back to our presentation because I want to start talking to you about why you should automate and talking about VR. So I leave lots of time at the end of our presentation for any questions that you might have. So looking back at our presentation, why automate? Well, simply because when everybody works together effectively, from the earliest phases of design, right from when you're starting out that initial design process. The results are incredible. You can reduce your costs and your time because you're communicating better. Your sales and marketing can engage customers early and often with the 3D visuals you can produce. Your decor center can include a VR setups so that clients feel that when they arrive into that decor center, they can see, well, what about this finish and that finish? And what would it look like if this and that were together? Then you can put them in that VR environment and they can see them together. Instant quotes so that you have all of your materials, permit drawings, getting those elevation sections details, engineering, directly integrating with Warehouser and MyTech so you can continue on with your engineering, or linking to point of sale systems, supplier catalogs, bringing in exact elements from people like Kohler, or an exact finish from a manufacturer, a paint manufacturer. Framing, like our framing panel diagrams, and that finished 3D BIM model, or the exports that you can create to a VR viewer. When we're looking at that, then what about VR? That's the next part of our presentation. We've talked about a BIM model, the intelligence of it. I gave you a demonstration of all the information you can pull off of it. But what's the value of VR, virtual reality? Is it really helpful in the marketplace? Well, our software works directly with the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. And the image you see there to the left, we've been to a number of different trade shows. And when we go, we always bring our setups of our VR machines. And it's always the same. The people are smiling and saying, wow, every time. It's very engaging. So if you want to engage your clients, VR is an excellent way to do that. Or if you need a little bit of sizzle, when you have people coming in maybe to your show home, your model home, and they're leaving, and you want to give them that little sizzle so they remember you and your company, you can have exports to that Google Cardboard app so that they're walking away with views of that model home right on their phone so they can get excited about it and share it with their friends and family. We're committed to doing as much as we can with VR because we see it as cutting edge in the home building industry. So how do we deliver, and where can we use different types of VR in the best way? So we know we have Google Cardboard available. There's also Samsung Gear. There's Oculus Rift. There's HTC Vive. And there's VRstudios. Lots of different companies producing VR equipment. So which one should I use and what's the benefit of each? Well, we'll first start off with the Google Cardboard. And in the middle of the screen is a sample of our Google Cardboard that we've produced to go along with our app. The pros, well, it's the cheapest option. You could grab Google Cardboards, just a simple one, and purchase them for about $7 a piece. It's a great takeaway. So when someone's walking away with that, model, show home model on their phone and being able to use it in a Google Cardboard or a panoramic view, it's a great way. It's a promote sharing. So when they walk away with it and have it on their phone, they can show it to their friends and family, and then that spreads your company name around. It's got good image quality. The cons, it's not as immersive as other VR technology. So you won't be able to navigate the same way, where if you're using an Oculus or an HTC Vive, you've got gaming controllers that allow you to smoothly walk in and around the model and feel immersed. There's different apps that allow you to navigate, but the navigating is never really that great when you're in a Google Cardboard. And there's no direct link back to the model. Obviously, if you're using a BIM model and you send the information off to the Google Cardboard, it's no longer directly attached back to that same model. And they're not durable. It's a piece of cardboard. At the end of the day, it's a cardboard box. So if you plan on using it over and over and over again, it's going to take some wear and tear. The Samsung Gear. It's the most popular option. There was over 2.5 million units sold last year. So that many of that Samsung Gear in the wild means that people are probably going to have one. It's a good on-site option. So when you're on-site and someone can't understand how you want to frame a wall, you can push that image from your BIM model to the VR app. Your contractors on site can pull it up on their phone and then they can be immersed in seeing and looking around that space on what it's going to look like. It's got good image quality as well, and it's definitely more durable than the cardboard. If you've seen a Samsung Gear, it's a plastic unit, um, and it's got a strap to put it onto your head. So it is not as immersive, again, as the higher-end machines of using Oculus or HTC Vive. There, again, is a lack of navigation. You can't easily navigate through the spaces like you can with the other units. And again, you've lost that direct link back to your model. Then we get looking at the units like the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. The pros, they're very immersive. When you're in that environment, you feel like you're right there and you can navigate around. The navigation is good. And it also has good image quality when you're walking through the model. And again, it's more durable than the cardboard. The cons, it needs more expensive hardware. When you're using an Oculus Rift and an HTC Vive, it has very specific computer power that it needs. And high-end video cards, lots of USB ports, and they have to be special USB ports to be able to use it. So if you're thinking about implementing one of these units, great idea, but also remember the hardware that's going to be involved in it. You're going to have to invest in a good computer. If you're looking at your laptop right now and thinking, oh, I wonder if I could do it, no, you're probably not, unless you went out directly and said, I want a laptop that is VR ready. It's not going to be. There's not very many laptops that are VR ready. It's a wired environment. So when you have the Oculus Rift helmet on or the HTC Vive helmet on, you're directly wired back to that computer. So you don't have the ability to get up and kind of walk around. You have to, and it's best you stay seated. They're getting better and better as that technology evolves and evolves, but you still might have that little bit of nauseous feeling if you're trying to stand up and do it. I always recommend staying seated when you're in that VR environment. Okay, so it's best for a showroom. So you can have a comfortable chair, maybe set up in the media room of that show home, and let people walk through different options available in that home or different models that you want them to see as well. This is that great one for sales centers, decor centers, and model homes because it's going to stay stationary. You're always going to have it in that one spot, and you have that dedicated computer to it. There is another even higher end VR equipment available called VRstudios. The pros, it is superior in its immersive environment. You feel like you're right there. It's got really good navigation. It's got great image quality. It's untethered, as you can see in this picture below here. People are standing up, walking around, moving and walking throughout the space. So you're not navigating with a gaming controller like you are with the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift. You're walking around yourself to navigate. And it is also multi-person, so a couple of people can be in that space at the same time. Whereas all the other options, it is just a single environment. The cons, it's your most expensive hardware, and it needs real computer power, much just the same as the Oculus Rift or even higher RAM values to it. So you'd really have to invest in this solution. But if you want a really high-end solution, if you are selling through the model homes or high-end condo units, this might be the space that you want because you can take them into that shell of a condo unit and they're going to feel what it's like to walk around if it was a finished condo unit. It's that immersive. It's really good. So let's kind of wrap up and before we get to our questions and answer period. VR and home design. VR is new. It's hot. It's what millennials like. It's that disruptive moment that we have in time to drive people into our sales offices, into our design centers. And this whole sales experience, as you're aware, it's changing. We have to stay current with that in the home building industry. We have to give buyers what they want. And as we're dealing with that new millennial market, they're used to everything digital. And they're used to these VR environments. Why not give them what they're used to seeing and showing them that you're a cutting edge builder by using these type of this type of information in your models. So whether you're a homeowner, a designer, a builder, a contractor, an engineer, or an LBM supplier, designing anything from a kitchen to a garage, a deck, or a brand new home, it should be fun and an engaging experience for everyone. And everyone should be able to work together and build from that same 3D BIM model and extract the information that they need at that time in the construction. It should be seamless, and the data should flow freely from that intelligent model. What I'd like to do now is answer everyone's questions that they might have about BIM and VR, so I can answer those for you in the next 15 minutes during our webinar time. So if you have a question, post it in the GoToMeeting chat section, and that'll send it directly to me. And I always say in the webinars that I host, never hesitate to ask a question. If you're thinking about asking it, other people can benefit from it as well. So help each other out in this webinar environment and ask questions. And if you have a question and you are just too shy to ask it and you'd rather talk one-on-one with us, I'll be putting up our contact details at the end of the webinar. So you can give us a call or send us an email, and we could chat about your BIM and VR questions that you might have. So let's go to the questions. Right. Hi, when selecting the location of the kitchen, isn't this constrained by the location of the building services and utilities? Can we have, and I just got to scroll through this question, have the location of the utilities mapped out into the model for informing the location of the kitchen? Absolutely. Great question. So when we're building that model and we're putting in that kitchen, can we first map out where we're going to have the utilities? Where is the plumbing? Where is the fridge? Where is the stove? Because I know I'm going to need specific utilities at those locations. Absolutely. Let me go back into my model, and I can show you how we can do that. I'm just going to put this into 2D and zoom in. So there's a number of ways that you can do that. When we're looking at inserting these elements, under the Interiors tab, I can directly do that. I could put my appliance exactly where I know I need to go. And working with my electrical elements, I could tell it that I need to have an outlet and put in the correct outlet for that, and putting all of those in together. So if I need my outlet to go in and need it behind my stove unit or wherever I need that to go, I can place that in and then place my elements. We can document where all of those are going with dimensions so that it's thoroughly dimensioned on the plan as well. And you can see those in 3D. I'm just going to put in an outlet on the wall here so we can see the outlet in 3D as well. So it's going to be part of our 3D model. So I'll just put it up against this wall, and then we'll go into our 3D view, and we can see the outlet on the wall. So we can see the 2D plan representation of it, and we can see it in 3D, and we can also put those elements in first if you have very specific points where you want that range to go, where you want that sink to go. Yes, you can definitely map those out and put in all of the elements as a separate element individually. Great question. What about the structural analysis as you progress with your design? When we look at the model itself, and I'm going to put this into a 3D view into showing us our framing. We don't do any kind of structural analysis in our BIM product, but if you were to export it out to something like Weyerhaeuser or MyTech, where they're going to be designing your trusses and your I-joists, then you could get them to do the structural analysis. That's what they do when they're designing those. But in here we have span tables that you can use. So if I come up and look at our building locations, this is where I have framing data. So when I started drawing these walls out on the ground floor, this is where it grabbed how to lay out those studs, how many top plates, bottom plates I'm going to use, the row of blocking halfway up, and what headers to put over what openings. So in here, I told it that I wanted 16 inches on center, double top plate, and blocking halfway up. And in our span tables, that's where I can specify what I want to have for certain size of openings. So it'll automatically go through as you punch a hole in the wall, refer to the span table, and put the appropriate size in for you. And as your local building codes change, that's when you can come in and change this data so that it's going to reflect your current values. But if you know yourself that maybe there's a point load coming over one particular window and you need to change the header for that one, you can go in at any time and tell it to go into framing mode, select that one window, and look at its framing properties. Tell it you don't want to refer to the infill, you don't want to refer to the rules that you've set, you want to use a custom head fill jam, and I want to use a 9.5 PSL header, and click OK. Again, there's no structural analysis done here. So you could tell it that it's a 2x2 and you've got a heavy load onto it, and it's going to accept it. You still have to be the designer behind it and have the rules correctly in place for it to follow. So I'm going to go back out to display all but the framing. Excellent question. Okay, looking at my next question. How long does it take to render your model from your software into an HTC Vive or Oculus? That's instantaneous. So if I went up to view and went into that presentation mode, if I had an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive unit attached to my computer, it would instantly, when you pick on the VR mode button, it instantly goes into that environment and you're navigating right away. So it's not taking the moment to render as you go. You set up scene properties before you even get there to tell it where you are in the world, what time of day it is, and it'll cast down shades and shadows for you. Now, as far as sending out the export to the panoramic view, because it's sending it out to your smart view and using the Envisioneer app, it's going to go through a rendering process. And that will depend on the size of your model and the amount of objects that you put in. So we also have different levels of rendering quality too. So you can go from a very low quality, poor view, or you can go to a very high quality view in when you're exporting that to the panoramic, and that's going to take longer. So if you have a short time, use the low quality. It's still going to be good, but it's not going to be as perfect and great and photorealistic as our high end. So depends on the objects, the size of the model. You could go from anywhere from waiting 10 minutes for a low quality small model to be waiting a couple hours if it's a very large 10,000 square foot home, lots of details into it, and you've got a panoramic view that you want to generate. So depends on, again, those factors. Next question. When placing an element out of the fireplace, will we be able to immediately know potential conflicts? You'll be able to see them. So we have different flags and different things that will tell you that it can and cannot do something. So as an example, I'm going to put it back down into our 2D view. So the question is, what about conflict control? With all of our objects, we have what we call collision control. So I'm going to draw your attention down to the lower right-hand corner of my screen where you see the word collision. So when I grab an element, and I'm going to grab, as an example, a chair, and I bring that chair into the space, I want you to watch that chair as I get it close to walls. It's got its back to this wall. Now I'm pulling it out and bringing it down, and now it automatically rotates to go up against this wall. And I get it close to this one, and it's automatically going to rotate. That collision control gives intelligence to the objects to know how to be orientated in a space, and it also won't allow them to be situated in a space where they will not fit. And when you start cutting sections and looking in 3D views, that's when you're going to see potential errors of the different information. So as another example, I'm going to go down to my foundation plan. In my foundation plan, I'm going to zoom in close so you can see it a little bit better. Depending on your computer, you may be able to see the lightly ghosted objects on my ground floor. You can draw up to 999 stories in our software. And as you're drawing all of those various locations, you'll be able to see lightly ghosted how they're going to be situated. So I can see my sink here, and I could put in a beam and all my different elements, and then I could triggers to me when I see them, uh-oh, I've got a potential problem here. I've got some plumbing, I've got some structure. What am I going to do? Okay, great question. What is the process for moving from design, engineering to fabrication shop drawings that could be used in Wyman or Kendeck line? Not familiar with the Wyman and Kendeck line, so I'm going to get back to you on that exact process for those two lines. I'll do some research for you and get back to you. I've got your name from the webinar and I'll be able to answer that for you. But the process for moving from, if that was going from our shop drawings, like our wall panel diagrams, if I wanted to send this out on site, what I can do is come up here to Tools, Wall Panels, and then our options here is to get a bill of materials from a selected panel, and then I can save that out as a file and I send it off. So it would directly send that bill of materials, what it would need for that particular panel, and you could send that over to your CNC machine. But again, I'll look closer and do a little research on the systems that you asked about and get you an answer on that. Can the drawings and details be sent for review and edited by third parties, i.e. MEP trades? Yes, they can. The models can be sent out in a number of different formats. So depending on the trades and what they're using, you could even print it out as a PDF file and share that PDF with them. You can export it out as a 2D image, a JPEG. A 2D drawing, if they're using AutoCAD, this will export right out in AutoCAD format, or a 3D model in AutoCAD format. The 3D model also goes out in SketchUp format if they're using SketchUp, or it can go out in 3D Studio format as well. So depending on the trade and what they need to, what they're using, you can export it out in all of those different formats. Okay, next question. How does the user move around the model in a Vive or Oculus? Is this through the standard teleportation method? Does it account for room scale? Yes, it does. So when you're using the Oculus or the HTC Vive, both of those VR equipment comes with a navigator controller. So the HTC Vive comes with paddles, and those paddles give you navigation control so that you can move around the unit. And it feels like you're in scale with the objects while you're in that 3D mode. The Oculus Rift comes with a gaming controller. So if you're used to an Xbox, it's an actual Xbox controller that they're using, and it ships with the Oculus unit. So both of those methods come with navigator controllers right when you purchase. It comes as a big package, and in a box, you just pull it out and you've got your Xbox controller that came with your Oculus, or the little paddles that come with the HTC Vive, and they're what's going to allow you to navigate and move around the space. Okay. How long to incorporate and set up the BIM into a company who does not use BIM? We have implementation programs, training programs to help you get started with that. We've got a team of people that will come in right into your office if you want to, teach everybody how to use the software, get it set up so that if you wanted us to do even a custom catalog, so the catalog of elements that you're picking directly relate to the SKU codes that you might have in your accounting or your point of sale system if you're a lumber yard, we can do all things like that and set them up. Depends on I guess your experience with software. If you have no experience, sometimes that's a great thing because it's not something that you're giving up. You've always used your AutoCAD. You're used to that 2D environment. And this will be somewhat familiar to you when we go into working drawings and elevations and sections. It's a CAD environment, so that might be helpful. But not having that experience too sometimes is helpful because you're not trying to lean on those tools that you are used to. If you get the software, what I always recommend to everyone is that you take advantage of our learning tools. So if you came here to the Quick Start Guide, it's a little tutorial. get your feet wet with basically the same type of tools that I outlined today in the BIM model. That should just take you less than a day to go through that. And then from there, if you took yourself through our website, and I'm just going to pull up our website for you, www.cadsoft.com. Here on our website, you'll be able to go to our Learning Center. And in our Learning Center, you'll be able to sign up for different classes that we have. You'll be able to view past presentations. We tape them all and record them and put them up onto our site. There's different documents that are up there. There's a community so you can chat with other people. And you can get all different videos and written documents to help you out with. Visit the events and training. Schedule some one-on-one training with us as well. Once you've went through that process, you'll find that if you've never used BIM software before, you should be able to use it within a week, and within the month, you'll feel much more comfortable with using the whole process. It's something that you have to immerse yourself into and dedicate yourself to as well, so that when you're using it, you know that there's no going back and picking up that pencil, that electric eraser. Don't you dare. Stick with the BIM software, and then eventually you'll find that you're quicker and easier in using it. While I'm out here on our website, maybe I'll take a moment as well and show you our gallery. So if you're wondering the photorealism that's available in the software, I'm just going to go into one of our software pages here and bring up our gallery for you as well. So you can see the kind of quality that you're going to get when you're looking at photorealistic renderings. The renderings that you see here on our website were produced in the software. So these are BIM models, and these are the level of photorealism that you'll be able to achieve when you're using the software. So take a look through our gallery. You can see the address at the top of my screen there. You can pull that up and use that to look at all the different images that are there. Can the software show tray ceilings? Yes, it can. So let me go back into my model. And while I'm in there, I'll put a tray ceiling in. So our ceiling is this light orange dashed line here. It's going to go around my building. And when I look at the properties of that ceiling, this is where I can really customize it to make it kind of come alive in different design aspects. So it went in flat. I put in a flat ceiling. But by just clicking on tray, I can make it into a tray ceiling. And then you can see the properties of that tray ceiling where you can really come along and customize it. How far out do I want to come away from the wall with my flat edge? And when I've got that skirt along the edge, and then I start to go up for my tray, do I want to go straight up? Do I want to go on an angle? Or do I even want to go on an arch? And you can arch it as well. Any of those options are available. Any type of slope angle that you want to put in. And you can see here it's even got energy put in it. Not only do we do tray, but we also do cathedral. So you can put a cathedral ceiling in as well. Any kind of angle and shape again. So even if your shape was going to be an arch again, you could put in a full barrel vault using this as well. So yes, lots of different options are available when you do a tray ceiling or a cathedral ceiling, any kind of style that you want to do. And if I pop that into our 3D view, you'll be able to see the tray that I formed around my building. So yes, trays are absolutely, and cathedrals are achievable in the software. Are there any libraries of data for wood construction for light frame, CLT, and for prefab construction? Yes. When we're looking at the software, we do have libraries of different ways to frame. So when I'm up here under my building locations and I told it that I wanted to have 16 inches on center, I can double click in there and bring up our library of different framing styles. So here I have my 16 inches on center. I could tell it that it's a pole barn and I want to frame it as a pole barn. I want to use steel studs and use it as a steel stud and extend my steel studs right up into the top channel of my framing. All of that can be done in the software. And when you're looking at all these different options, I'll look at one of these as an example. you've got lots of ways of even creating your own custom infill configurations. We give you the parameters to change and customize. So in this one here, if I told it I wanted to add blocking to the wall and I wanted it to be on the flat and I wanted it to be 2 feet from the bottom of the wall and up every 2 feet, I could get some ladder framing going on. So lots of different framing library options in there, so you can look at all the different ways to frame the wall and even create your own custom ones as well. Thanks for that question. Okay, our next question. Can the software be used for multifamily projects? Yes, it can. We have a residential and light commercial focus. I wouldn't use our software for industrial purposes or large commercial projects like a shopping mall or a factory. But yes, any kind of residential focus you can do. Our limit is 999 stories. So if you want to do a project that big, you can challenge the software and go up to that many stories. So yes, we can tackle multifamily. How does the BIM link to other departments, i.e. purchasing and accounting? Great question. Let me exit out of these dialogues box that I was in for when we were looking at the framing. And we're here at Tools and Analyze. The simple way for the Generate Project Estimate to link over to your estimating is by creating these templates. Here you can see the different software packages that we directly link with so that you can take the data that we generated here and send it right over to them. So if you're using Builder Trend or you're using Pro Estimator or UDA, we can link directly to those products. If you're using something like QuickBooks or you're perhaps a lumberyard and you want to link into your point of sale system, when I analyze the model, I would instead generate a quote. And when I generate a quote, it's again going to put it into a table format for me of all of the different products. But here it allows me to export it to different programs like a point of sale system at a lumberyard. And here's all of the different point of sale systems that we do link up with if you are a building supply company. Or if you're using QuickBooks, here's how we would link up with QuickBooks. So you can see the export would just come through this channel right here. It sends it out as a file format that you can read in QuickBooks or in our project estimate in Excel format or all the different formats that we link up with. So it's just exporting it out in the file format of choice. I've got a thank you and somebody had to leave. And that was our last question that we had. So I'm going to leave that chat panel open for one further minute. I appreciate everybody staying long into the presentation. And if you do have another question, feel free to type it in there and I'll be able to answer it for you, but that does seem to be the last question that I had. As a follow-up, I'm going to include a handout for everyone. So I'm going to drag a file up onto your GoToMeeting panel right now. And that PDF that you see, you can download it. It's all of the files in my presentation. It's going to be loading up right now so that you'll be able to download the file. And I'm just going to go back to our final screen here in our presentation so that you have our contact information as well if you wanted to contact us. So in the chat panel part of your GoToMeeting console, you will see a PDF file that you can download. It's all of the different slides from our presentation. And the last screen that you have up right now is our contact details. So if you do have any further questions, never hesitate to contact us. And I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that's not always the easiest thing to do, but I thank you for taking the moment to learn a little bit about BIM and VR. And again, have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks and goodbye.